To follow on from the previous video on the winter initiative in the Simon Hostel on the Sidmonton Road in Bray, County Wicklow. Now, I accept it is probably a developing story and circumstances may be changing, but the number of the situation still exists. So here is a couple of questions to ask the County Council manager responsible for funding and inspection and regulation of the homeless hostel. So if people watching this want to ring the County Council reception and ask who is responsible and then ask the questions I have put forward down below, you can on my Facebook or YouTube site acknowledge that you have done that if you so choose, plus any advice as well. I like to think 10 distinct calls should do it. More would be nice, but be prepared for them seeking to undermine one question on the fallacy that then scuppers all other questions. Also, this video is subtitled as my accent for some might be hard to understand. Now the questions are: 1. When is the winter initiative going to open? 2. How many beds will be made available? 3. Will there be a winter initiative facility made available to women? 4. When will the winter initiative close for the 2023 to 24 winter season? 5. Will the 2 winter initiative beds that are occupied unfairly by rent payers, in other words tenants of the Simon, for the Simon is a landlord, yes, that's right, a business, be made available to people on the streets? 6. Who is responsible for advertising the beds, and what is the criteria for getting a bed? And who makes the decision on who gets a bed? On those questions, if it is perceived to be unfair, does the law support such unfairness? If so, therefore the law is unfair, and therefore the politicians and law draftsmen and legal practitioners who benefit out of the law status quo are unfair. Surely that is the logic. After all, the law is meant to be based on logic. Now let's stop here. We are dealing with, in the County Council and the Simon, with smart alecks, who have mastered dreg rhetoric. They like to obfuscate, evade, withhold facts, avoid. So with that last point, 5, they will tell you they can't move the tents into any rooms because there is none available. Well, they shouldn't have moved them into the winter initiative room in the first place, but they can double up many of the rooms in the hostel, which they have done before and can do again. They have the beds. Think about that. It's outrageous that there is people sleeping on the street and they refuse to double up the rooms. They may complain that some of their tenants have not got severe psychiatric issues and it would be unfair to house people with them. Well, then move them on into psychiatric hostels where they have the medical staff to deal with them. Don't have them denying people beds. It's wrong. Factor in they have half an empty building to play with oodles of room. With oodles of rooms. Maybe they might convert the 2 tenants who are there already into winter initiative residents. But this is a smarty pants strategy. It will deny people sleeping in rough beds, and these 2 will be integrated back into the Simon rent roll in the summer. As far as I am concerned, if you are more than 6 months in a hostel, you are not homeless. That's your home. Some people want to spend their lives being minded. That's okay, as long as the Simon hostel admit that and are prepared to divide their business plan into permanent hostels and temporary homeless hostels. From a pan-Ireland context, it's appalling that the Simon don't tell people that they have residents in their hostels for years, and these are residents who have the opportunity to move on. They have residents who should be in nursing homes, residents who should be in psychiatric care. Last year the winter initiative went up to July. All I know, if the boys who were there mid-winter were there by April, the initiative would have shut down by then. Homeless hostels don't like residents or service users who ask questions, who demand standards, who are not informants or instigators of trouble, under instruction from the staff, who think of others, who don't play the propaganda game. They are useless to the business model. They need rid of these difficult men and women. There's homeless services I deal with in the town. These are state funded or integrated with the state. In other words, they are the system. They probably will by default loop ask me to go into the hostel in spite of them being told so many horror stories from users past and present of it. In spite of the lip service of acknowledgement of these wrongs and insipid confrontation with the powers that be to remedy them by the system, they would claim to listen to my complaints, but that is to assuage me while they go back to the crease to keep on bawling straight and true about getting me into the hostel. And they will come out with, it is better than the streets. According to that logic, prison is better than the streets. A rendition of Fight is better than the streets. I proceed to show up the absurdity of their logic by telling them the Christian Brothers were Christians and the industrial schools had a roof and a bed and food and heat and an education in its walls. We could concentrate on the positives and the propaganda and come up with the meaningless excuses for the negatives, like rape, beatings, keeping kids stupid, mental torture, the lies, the exasperating normalization of this evil by society, degradation, God being used to justify this evil. You can hear it and see it now. Brother Aloysius is a good man with faults like the rest of us. We are all sinners. We all have a cross to bear. Harden up. Stop being a crybaby. Stop looking for faults. All cheap words used to justify and give a license to evil. Because when reduced to the base element, that is what it is about. You are a number. You are to be used to preserve their job and wages and associated goody two-shoes prestige of the profession. Could these people work at anything else that bring these same qualities? Would good people sell you a pup? No. Therefore they are not good people. Would good people tell the truth publicly and confront the evil inherent without fear nor favour? Would they above all confront their own side? Would good people do it without the need of money, wages for instance, or publicity? Would they do it day in, day out? For evil doesn't take a holiday. Let me give a few extra suggestions for the Simon hostel. Let's continue with 1. The Simon have a large backyard. Surely they could facilitate tents for the winter season there. I am thinking of the women who have pet dogs. If the hostel management are prepared to tolerate smoking crack pipes in the building, why not a few dogs in the backyard? Secondly, why can't the Simon offer a facility in the morning between 8 and 10 for people on the streets to avail of cereal and hot drinks in the winter? They have half an empty building. Right, I know they will mention that fallback board insurance. Well, you know what they can do. You renegotiate with the insurance company and shop around to get an acceptable price. Insurance translated means being lazy and protecting the profit margin. Thirdly, in the front lobby, the schedule of who is working that day and for the next week should be on the wall. There should also be a separate poster of the workers' pictures with their names and their position in the hostel hierarchy. On another poster should be the procedure of complaint for residents. There should be a parallel system of complaint directly to the council. For on the litany of unbelievable outrages I have heard about management and staff, it is pointless following that line of complaint. I go and fire the staff. It's like Satan to investigate himself. Anyway, back to the parallel system. This is where you write down the complaint and you get a specific individual number in reply to acknowledge with a further reply within a week to stipulate if the complaint is true, what laws and social services protocols have been broken, and advice of legal action to take. An investigation being led by the council into the matter. All these complaints should be tallied up, with anonymity being preserved unless the resident waives that away. The relevant government department should have access, and at a minimum local councillors should have access. Legal eagles should have access. In other words, if the complaints are severe and numerous, with any kind of a decent excuse to absolve, then not only should the management be sacked, but they should be prosecuted in court. Nobody, I repeat, nobody has a right to engage in human rights abuses, especially those in power. I am not proselytizing to the unconverted. I am hoping to inspire the few whose soul is kind to be more than keyboard warriors. Just remember, the Simon and the County Council assume that utterance of the truth will quickly become background noise, with self-delusion and cronyism holding sway again. Just know the cesspit it is, the leech that is the hostel is, as you pass it by every time on the Sidmonton Road.